What's up, everybody? It's me, Bryan, with my son, Arnell. He is my popcorn squishmallow, freshly popped from the oven. So there you go. Gobble, gobble, Thanksgiving. I don't
Oh
know.
my God.
Those like posts where people are like, gobble, gobble, there's another turkey in the oven. Well, I'm that turkey today, bringing you an episode of Demon Slayer that is focused on a Naruto character, Pain. I'm just kidding. But we are going to run the theme of this episode on pain today. Of course, I have my lovely, lovely co hosts with me, Emily and Hannah.
What's up, everyone? I'm Hannah, and I am that dark, brooding, blue-eyed Gyu Tomioka that barely speaks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emily. I'm one of the people that got crushed under a bunch of the rocks that Pain throws in Naruto. Hannah, you'll have to watch to get
I
it.
was like, wait, when do people get crushed under rocks in the show? I was so confused for a minute. Okay, got it.
It's okay. He goes rock skipping one day on the lake. You'll see it later.
You'll see it. When you know, you know. This world shall know pain.
That's literally what Rui's doing right now. But honestly, what an opening, right? We finished off Hinokami with watching Tanjiro just give a nice slice to Rui's head. We see it flying in the air, and Tanjiro is barely alive with an unfortunate situation at hand, right? Like he is struggling, bussing, and he is trying to get to Nezuko at the moment. He's such in immense pain, but he keeps thinking and his brain doesn't stop. How does this characterize Tanjiro and the bonds that we've talked about with Nezuko?
Ooh, well, I'm excited to hear Hannah's answer. This is her boy, but um, I mean, it's very in line with everything we've seen in Tanjiro's character so far. He, I think, recognizes that he's in pain and he takes a moment to acknowledge it, but to him, it's not more important than protecting those that are around him, and especially Nezuko. Nezuko is like his entire drive through this whole storyline that we have for him. And so I think he would walk through fire for her. So like a broken rib, an arm that won't react, like what's that to him when he's got a sister to protect? So their bonds are unbreakable. He is in pain, but he's going to keep going until he literally can't. I think he would keep fighting until he died to protect her.
Well, I kind of touched on this in the last episode, but he literally says that. He's, before Nezuko does the blood demon art in the last episode, he literally says, I got to take him down even if I get slashed in the process. Like he's willing to die for her safety. And I think this moment where he's just crawling to her, he is blacking out, he can barely see her, he's in so much pain, but he must get to her. And what's funny is it's like at this very moment, it doesn't, they're not even really in danger, he can't really protect her because he can barely move, and yet he's still trying to get to her. And then of course, the great thing happens where we find out Rui is still alive. But it definitely goes straight along with his character. I also wanted to mention that he's thinking about saving Inosuke still. He's like, I gotta go help fight the other demon with Inosuke, and it's like, bro, you're done. You're done. Lay down. Take a nap. Something, please. But it's so him. It's like, I gotta keep going. It's like, no, you need to stop.
Yeah, and honestly, I was so shocked when I saw Rui get back up. I was like, man, he just pulled that out. He's good. Obviously not in great condition at the moment, but dear Lord. Then he's like, yeah, I cut my own head off. And now it's time to die. And then Gyu just comes in, beautiful water form. And he's like, I'm going to use my eye basket. And then Gyu doesn't even move. That's what gets me in this moment. Tanjiro is watching this happen, getting sliced up. Gyu's dead calm. He doesn't even notice, and it's done for, which I really appreciated. It's very on brand for that. Kind of going back into some of the flashbacks that we've seen in this episode. This is kind of off tangent, but kind of comes back round. When my husband and I were first looking at houses, there was a house that we went to It had hole marks in the wall. It had punch marks everywhere. Like you could tell that this has been a violent household. And I got a very bad aura. Looking in the flashback that we see where Rui is seated with a family dinner, broken windows, broken doors, what kind of pain is involved in being in this family? And what kind of pain does the house show of our characters of this demon family?
Man, Bryan, you're hitting us with the metaphorical stuff today. I love it. I think the house is a perfect example of how broken the family ties are. You know, we see in this flashback that all of these bonds that have been spoken about for the past couple of episodes, we finally see that they're all really done in fear. You know, we saw her transformation and he like ripped her face off to make her look like one of them. And then we saw the mother demon revert and he was choking her. So clearly this is all very broken and very fearful. And I think the building that they're in, it's almost perfect because it's broken and there's just not a lot of love within those walls. I think when you go to a house with a family of love, even if it's small, even if it's only a room, like the Kamado home for one, there's warmth. There's, you know, you can feel it in the atmosphere that there's just love. And there was none of that in that house at all.
Yeah, it is a really good metaphor for the dynamic of this like false forged nuclear family that Rui has tried to create. And I do think that he's really tried. I think that he lacks a fundamental understanding of what it is that like builds and nourishes those bonds. And so he tries, but like Hannah said, it's like in shambles. It's like a shadow or like an echo, or it doesn't really bear any real semblance to what a warm family home should be. It's in tatters. It's dark. It's cold. It's gloomy. People speak in whispers in the house, or the demons do rather, and it doesn't resemble what a real family home should. For not for lack of him trying, but I think that he's not able to convince these. It's not like an unconditional love. It is a very conditional and a very forced love that comes from this found family that he's created. And I think the pain is reflected in the environment that they're in.
And can I just say, the scene where they're all sitting around that table with like empty dishes was, it kind of made me chuckle, but it was also super creepy because they all were just sitting there staring at each other. And we know that they're demons, so they can't like eat food out of dishes. Like they have to go kill people, right? So it's like, what is the point of this? You can just tell that Rui is just like forcing them to sit there and just like stare at each other because he has this like weird idea of what family is supposed to be, but he's not doing it right because he doesn't know what he's doing. And it just felt like it was very eerie. Like that was the most eerie moment for me, was just them like,
it's like a haunted house.
yeah.
It's like
Honestly, I thought that they were gonna be like, I thought like at least at dinner we would have served like some human blood. Like there might have been like a pitcher on the table, like A positive, you know, maybe like a B negative next to it.
No.
I was like, where are you going with this?
Like Hyogai was so excited for that one kid, right? Because he had special blood. Like maybe he had like a little shot glass for everybody. Like, hey, like celebration, we got a new member. I mean,
we all sit here and stare at each other with no food on the table.
it's a really interesting dynamic for sure. Like furthering a dynamic comparison, though, right? We see how Rui uses pain to manipulate others. And we've seen this before within the factions of demons, right? We've seen Muzan in the 12 Kazuki use pain to manipulate others. How do they compare to each other? And, we've heard the comment that Rui was a favorite of Muzan. So where does this lead us to believe that Rui falls in the 12 Kazuki, even though he's a lower rank?
Well, it's interesting because I believe that we saw that he was ranked 5th in the lower 6. So he really is like kind of at the end of the totem pole there. But clearly like a very powerful demon. And we do hear them refer to Rui as the master's like favorite. So although he may be low on the totem pole, I still think it's very elusive to be a member of the 12 Kazuki. And it's something that has to be maintained too, as we've seen with like the Suzumi Mansion. You have a former member there that was not able to maintain their rank. So I imagine that this needs to be a demon that is like extremely bloodthirsty and demonstrates that in like a kill count for Muzan, because ultimately he lends them his power. So I would imagine that their power also kind of lends itself back to him. And he's looking to surround himself by good protection. Now, part of the reason he might be at the lower end of the totem pole, he is still like in a child's body. And so I wonder if maybe that limits his abilities as a demon, like a little bit more than some of the ones that are just like older, whether they're like older demons and they've just been demons for longer and have had more time to kind of consume more humans, or they're just in an older body that maybe is capable of some different like blood demon art than what he might be capable of. But again, not for a lack of him trying. And I think that maybe, I don't know if I would say that Muzan has a soft spot. I don't think that he really has any soft spots for anything. But I could see him being amused by this like very small demon as part of his horde. And so kind of allowing him to do what he wants, allowing him to like make this little family, because ultimately it's not making him any weaker at this point in time. If anything, it's probably getting him more human consumption to like have this family that's working with him. So I think as long as it doesn't pose itself as a threat to Muzan, that he's cool with it. But there is pain involved being in that family. Rui has to kind of assert his dominance as well, being the 12 Kazuki. So it's not a decision that comes lightly to be included in the family, knowing that ultimately they do all report to Muzan.
Man, that was all what I want to say.
That was an answer.
Okay,
Emily.
Emily.
That was an answer.
Drop the mic. I want to kind of piggyback off of you saying that Rui, like, he is low on the totem pole. Like, he's second from the bottom of the 12 Kazuki. And I remember reading somewhere, but we have to think about the fact that he's sharing his power with other people that could be holding him back as well. Because he has this innate desire to have a family for some reason. We don't know at this point, like, why is he so hyper fixated on the idea of family? And that seems to be his drive. Everything about this character so far has been about family. Every time that he gets angry, all of his conversation with Tanjiro has gone back to this situation with him and Nezuko, or even before he knew that Nezuko existed, it was talking about like taking back Tanjiro's comment about it being forged. Like, Rui wants a family. We don't know why at this point, but he is so hyper fixated on that he is sharing his power with these other people that I believe probably kept him from climbing the ranks, which is why he was so low. That being said, I almost feel like Muzan is curious about that, because he has this demon who's so hyper fixated on family. He probably is just kind of like, you know what? I want to see what happens here. I'm going to sit back and enjoy whatever he does and see what happens. If he can create a family and if that makes him stronger, then great. If he can't, then, he'll take out other demons, blah, blah, blah. So I think that there's the possibility that Muzan was just kind of like, this is my own personal experiment. I'm going to see what this kid can do when he's so hyper fixated on family.
Yeah, and really, this shared dynamic of kind of using this family as a possible weapon and just letting it possibly flop, honestly, it feels really kind of similar to today's environment, just like in life as people try things, right? Like, what's the worst that can happen? I lose a demon of the 12 Kazuki. I got another one around here somewhere. Someone else can get my blood, right? Like, it's a pretty cool thing for Muzan to just be able to somewhat dispose of these things, but it also shows how hierarchies in this structure in Rui's family are mirrored to Muzan, right, in the 12 Kazuki. So it's almost like a mini Kazuki, if you will, which I think is kind of cool.
Kazuki 2.0.
Kazuki 2.0 X Nike. I don't know. All right, cool. Let's see here. So In the flashback of the daughters, where she refers to her sister who ran away while Rui was at the base of the mountain connecting with Muzan, he had to have his monthly touch point for his personal development as a demon. What does this flashback tell you about Rui's human life, and how much can we assume that he's changed since becoming a demon?
Did you really just say monthly touch point on his development and personal growth?
I know, I'm triggered.
I sure did. What? He's got to grow up as a demon, right? We need tangible, actionable items for
He needs
personal
to
growth.
own his development.
All right, so we see the initiation process to join this family, right? Couple things to point out here, right? We said Rui gets the special permission to do this and share his power, as well as the actual initiation, right? What type of pain do you think is experienced in this initiation, and what sort of pain did Rui go through to prove himself worthy of giving out blood?
I mean, it's probably several kinds of pain. I think that's experienced by the person who's being initiated into the group. Physical pain, for one thing. It looks excruciating. They have their faces. I'm not sure if they're replaced. I don't know. I'm a little unclear on exactly what that looks like, but they're given the ability to at least like take on this appearance of the spider family. Although we also see later that they're able to revert back. So something happens to their face that seems excruciating as part of the initiation. And then I think there's also like a mental load that goes with it as well. Having to like fully take on this persona of this character, this family member that he's wanting, and they need to play the part perfectly, or else there's going to be more physical pain. So I think that they're walking a fine line to try to be what he wants them to be. Rui already is giving that pain to the others. But I think that he's also had like a high kill count in his time that's proven to be worthy to Muzan enough to let him take on this endeavor. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of pain involved with the initiation process. I think we see it firsthand. Like Emily said, we're not really sure if their faces are being ripped off. That's kind of what it looks like, but then they can revert, so it's a little bit confusing. But just like the conversation that the two girls had before running away, like she was just like, this isn't cool, like this is scary, like if we try and run away, we're gonna possibly die, because getting strung up in the sun means death for demons. So clearly, like, they're in a very painful situation. They can't get out of this. It's very abusive, it's very fearful, but they're kind of stuck there. So I think Rui does exactly what Muzan wants, and that's use fear to control, because we know that Muzan uses fear to control everyone. So it kind of goes straight along with him. It's just like he's Muzan 2.0. It's like Muzan's just like, all right, this is my assistant. I don't know.
Hey, maybe, right? So, in the flashback that we kind of see for the daughter, where she refers to her sister who ran away while Rui was at the base of the mountain with Muzan, right? What does this flashback tell you about Rui's human life, and how much we can assume he's changed since becoming a demon?
I think it shows how much he just doesn't know how family works. Like I just touched on with the daughters running away and talking about how if they get caught, they get, strung up in the sun and they disintegrate. True families aren't like that. And so I think it maybe tells us that Rui's human life was possibly not great either. Maybe he didn't experience the bond of like a true family, or he felt like he didn't experience the true bond of a family. He just doesn't really know how it works. So he's doing what he thinks a family will do, when in reality, that probably isn't. And I think, again, going back to why he was getting so angry with Tanjiro, is because Tanjiro is just constantly challenging Rui's idea of what a family is, and showing him that maybe he's wrong, and I'm sure most demons don't like being proven wrong.
Fair.
Agreed. And I think that was, just like stated outright. I mean, his goal here now is to like take Nezuko, and that's something that he believes will really work for him too. He's like, oh, well, your sister is like very loyal to you and you're very loyal to her. So if I just take her, then I can have that. I can just like take these things. So he's like a spoiled little child. Life doesn't work that way. But if he's never known any different and he has this immense power to make it so, which he has so far, and other demons have like acquiesced to his desires, I don't know how he would know otherwise, like what is supposed to be healthy until he sees it. And so he's seeing it right now. And I think that it makes him angry because it's different than what he's seen so far. And he is out of touch with being human. He's become a demon. He's gotten what he wants this whole time. So he's out of touch to humanity, and he's out of touch with reality. And he's really just a small, spoiled child.
Honestly, I never really thought of, like I said, I didn't think about how much Rui exemplifies human children until we kind of started talking about it right now, because like obviously he's a tiny baby, and that other guy was like, I'm gonna kill you. But I forget that he is probably like mentally still like a 12, 11-year-old child who's probably still learning fundamentals of relationships. So it's really interesting to see how even time as a demon can still make or break you in the way you behave, which I think is kind of cool. As we fade out from this flashback, we do see the newest Hashira that we've been introduced to come out of the woods and have a quick conversation with our daughter before putting her dukes up and using a breathing form. What are your thoughts on this scene, and what type of pain is Shinobu using against this demon? Is Shinobu comparable to Rui in the sense of putting someone else through pain for their perceived sins?
I love Shinobu. I'll say, I think I've mentioned she's not like my favorite, but I love her. And watching this scene again reminded me, like, I really do love her. First of all, her breathing form is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the sparkling and then the butterflies, like the animators, like they're really outdoing themselves at this point. Like they are just taking this and running with it, and I am all for it. I loved the contrast of like the beauty of the breathing style and then like the bleeding on the finger as well, to show that like she was still deadly. It was very interesting. Her little conversation was very not like demon like, but very just, she's getting the truth out of her, but doing it in a very mean way. Like she was kind of bullying her, like she was never going to be her friend, unless I don't think that was ever going to happen, because I don't think Shinobu ever really believes that demons can be good. I think she wants demons to be good, and that's why she's having this conversation, but I don't think she actually believes it'll ever happen at this point. Is she comparable to Rui? Not really. I think, this is where there's like a blurred line. I think I've had these thoughts a lot when it comes to demon slayers. They 100% think that they are right. The audience believes that they are right. They are perceived as the good guys. But what if the demons were the good guys the whole time? I'm kidding. So I think it can be comparable, but Rui at the end of the day was just kind of toying with Tanjiro and just trying to be as mean as possible before he killed him. And Shinobu's doing the same thing, but at the same time, she's going to kill the demon because the demon has killed other humans. So it's more of a like righteous reason, I guess you could say. But I guess it is kind of similar. I guess that's where I'm getting at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think that this show does a really nice job of making that line very blurry, of like, what makes it okay when this person does it, but not okay when and like, are they really evil? Mm-hmm. And I think that we really see that with some of these family members, because it's like, we get the confession that she's killed 5 people, all under orders. And then Shinobu is kind of like doing her noir detective thing and is like torturing her a little and is like, 5, huh? Well, as I have you pinned to the ground and I'm threatening to gouge out your eyes, I saw at least 14. And it's like is she trying to get a false confession? Because we also know that some of the people that were in those orbs, like, were okay. Like, we see Murata later. So, like, he was okay. So I don't know. It's an interesting contrast between the two of them because I think that in practice we are more likely to kind of be rooting for the demon slayers because we root for humanity because we can relate to them. But ultimately these demons were trying to mind their business and they probably would have left people alone if they hadn't come and bothered them on the mountain. They weren't really going anywhere because they were just trying to play house, you know. So I do think that it's comparable. I don't really know who exactly is right in this moment. But it is exciting to get to see Shinobu do her thing a little bit. We saw last episode where she got to heal Zenitsu a little bit because she has the familiarity with poison. She got to use poison on somebody else this time and to kill them with it. So it's interesting.
I love that she like flapped her arms with her butterfly Haori when she was like dodging attacks to make it look like she was a butterfly. Just everything about her fighting style is really cool and very unique. So I enjoy watching her fight. I wish we see more of her.
Yeah, and I want to call out to Shinobu's sword, actually, because if you look at it, it's one. Oh, Hannah's got it in the background, of course, next to a ODM sword. But right, you look at that sword and you get to see a little bit different of a formation. This is kind of off of a tangent here, but right, it's pointed. It's meant for stabbing, and so when we see that, right, that demon also kind of dismisses her because of that. And I think it's a really interesting point that the demon takes there. He's like, oh, you can't cut anyone's head off? Ah, I got this. Like, that's not how that's going to work. And we saw her convulsing on the ground. Really overall beautiful, beautiful work right there, just because it also kind of shows, the pain that sometimes these demons go through when they're trying to find their own justice and truth, which is, again, blurs that line kind of further, right? Another flashback, kind of like a sub theme for this episode, like flashbacks this time. But right, we see one more flashback and we see Rui flashing back to the origins of his family. We see that Rui is talking with his quote unquote mother, right? And what his intentions are with his family. When he responds to hope to gain his human memories back by feeling the familial bond, what kind of pain did he have to go through to commit to a demon transformation and try and make a family out of it?
I have to say it was probably unimaginable, the pain that he went through. But it's interesting because we have talked about like that he is a child. So I almost wonder too if it's just like blown out of proportion a little bit. Little kids have big feelings and those feelings are valid and they don't necessarily know how to process the world. And some are much more mature than others, but they're still children. And whatever he had to be going through, that choosing eternity as a demon would be the less painful option. I feel pity for him. And clearly, there was something that he was missing to want to make this family and to try to turn a haunted house into a home.
It's so, that whole final scene gave me chills because we see this pretend mother asking him these questions like, why do you want a family? Why are you thinking this way? And he doesn't know. And then he's seeing, Tanjiro just like drape himself over Nezuko and protect her and possibly have just passed out, like just protecting her, having his hands on her head, like full on shielding her from anything that could happen to her. And he's just kind of sitting there. Like we get the sense that he has this pain of like never feeling that, he's like, why have I never felt that? And we can assume that means that he never felt that even when he was a human at this point as well. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the last couple of minutes ago about how like there is kind of a blurred line when it comes to Demon Slayer. These Demon Slayers, except for Tanjiro, really are just evil demon, slay, slay, slay. Like they've been programmed for it. And a lot of them, it comes from a messed up history where demons did something horrible to their family. But then you look at these demons and they have a messed up history as well. They just maybe made the wrong choice, or they made the choice that they thought was right for themselves. And so we're really starting to see this come into play more and more throughout the show, which is one of the reasons why I love it. And I think that it all goes back to pain. Every single character, it's like they have a painful past, and some are challenging it, some are not. Some are just kind of going along with the flow. And I think Rui in his last moments here is finally starting to challenge what he thought, albeit a little bit too late.
Yeah. And right, talking about painful moments in history, let's loop back to episode 1, right? We beg the question then at that point, what could have been if Tanjiro had been maybe 5 minutes later? Would this have been an alternative outcome for Tanjiro and Nezuko? That's a question that crossed my mind. Like, what if this was reversed and Nezuko was the one leading the family, trying to regain that? Or it also leads us to possibly question, did Rui have his own version of what Tanjiro and Nezuko went through? Because, right, we've seen them lose their family. We've watched Tanjiro somewhat rebuild this family with his troop. But now, right, without any of that, without moving on into the Demon Slayers, what would they have had they not had Giyu there either? So this begs the question, were they in the same spot, and did they just get lucky to find some way to peacefully resolve this? If you're not feeling morally questionable right now, I don't know if this episode hit you hard enough.
Yeah, I mean, it all, Emily's mentioned this before, it all goes back to choices when it comes to the story. It's not good versus evil. It's humanity versus demons, and there's good and bad people on both sides. And I think there's a lot of what ifs. Had Tanjiro arrived later, was Nezuko going to survive? Would she already be a demon? You know, if Tanjiro had arrived earlier, would he have gone there and been killed along with everyone else? Would he got turned into a demon? Like, there's so many what ifs and so many things that could have happened. But I think when it comes down to it, we're seeing that Rui does not have a loving family history at all, and Tanjiro does. And a loving family can make all the difference in the world sometimes.
Damn. All right. Well, any last thoughts on the episode before we go to favorite moments? All righty. Well, favorite moment for me, definitely gonna be watching the initiation scene. Reason being is I think it really does exemplify the pain of this episode and the overall sentiment of what happens for demons. I think it just kind of generalizes the concept that we've talked about so far of a lot of painful things happening, and then it does represent a transformation, not only in the character itself, but in the mindset of that character shifting when they become like a full-blown demon, right? Getting that blood in them, and then they become a part of this family. I think it represents a lot of the pain they felt to get to this point. And so I think it's just really a beautifully painful metaphor.
That's good. My favorite moment, we kind of brushed over this. It's the very beginning of the episode when Giyu Tomioka shows up. Holy moly. 11th form, dead calm. Come on. Did anyone else not get chills when that happened? I was like, what the heck is going on? How is he able to do this? We're seeing that Giyu is incredibly powerful. We got to see it in the last episode and the episode before that. Like, he's been showing up and he's been just like slashing through these demons like they're nothing when our Kamaboko squad is really struggling with them. So I think just starting to see the level of the Hashira because we've seen our Kamaboko squad. I love that name. I have to keep it. And they seem really strong. But then we get to the Hashira, we're like, oh, they're really strong. And I remember thinking at one point, I'm like, man, the Hashira are so strong. Like, this seems like it's going to be easy, and TBD on that. But I think it goes along with, I think I mentioned this last episode, of the difference between Giyu and Tanjiro. Giyu created this form all on his own. The 11th form is his form. Tanjiro heard it and was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And it's dead calm because he's calm. Tanjiro would never be able to do that breathing form. I'm sorry. My boy is just not calm like that. So I think it's bringing more interesting things to the story. We're seeing that maybe people can create their own forms. And I think it's setting us up well for meeting more Hashira and learning about the different personalities that we're going to see here shortly.
100%. I feel like I have to echo Hannah a little bit. Giyu's just so cool. He's so calm. Nobody even knew that there was an 11th form. It's like, what? Like, I thought that there were only 10. And he does it like it's nothing. He just slices through that like cream cheese. It's like it's 0. But I'm not gonna totally overshine Hannah here. I do love that moment as like, I think it's my favorite serious moment. I'll talk about like the stupid comedy that's in this. I like at the end when Shinobu gets Murata out of the cocoon and he's just like standing there. He's like, yeah, like we need to. She's like, oh, I'm very glad to see that you're okay, but that your clothes are gone. And he's like, it's just stupid. But I love like those little breaks where we get a chance to laugh at something in what's otherwise like a very serious episode with a lot going on. It's like he's just there kind of like being a silly goose. So I like that moment. I don't know. It's funny.
That moment when you realize you relate to Murata most of all.
For real. He's just like me for real.
Just like there trying to get by and somehow surviving with the help of everyone else.
And he's not even weak. It's just that they were that strong.
Yeah.
It's true. He gets the participation medal of the Demon Slayers. He's like, you did a mission. You didn't kill anybody, but you did one. Good job.
You did one and you survived. Good job.
I mean, that has to be like a successful thing, right? Like most people might not come back. So I feel like, they probably do like a little award ceremony and give you like a little cup of tea, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe a new uniform.
I mean, technically only Zenitsu, well, actually Tanjiro did kill a demon. He killed Mother Demon, but was Inosuke the only one who didn't kill a demon on this mountain?
Oh, on the mountain? No, I think he did, right? Didn't he with Tanjiro?
Oh, he helped. Yeah, he helped with that.
I was going to say he helped.
He didn't kill one on his own. He mentions that, I think, at some point. He's like, I haven't killed one demon on my own. I think that's important for his character.
That's his motivator.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have for today, folks. I hope that you enjoyed this episode featuring so many other themes and so many other concepts today. We really just did a bunch of circles, but it all came back to the theme of pain on Demon Slayer. So we thank you for joining us today. We hope that you'll hit us up on TikTok. We're the Hashira Half Hour. We have Instagram. We are all over TikTok doing all sorts of wild things. You can watch me in my car rides. You can watch Hannah do fun dances. You don't want to see me dance. That's an ugly sight.
I don't
do
dances.
Yeah, you did. You did the...
Oh, I did. Oh my gosh. Okay, we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. No. But, of course, Umai.
Umai.
Umai!
Oh, God.